this is Dr. Crawford's class. I want to say thank you for doing this. I know you didn't volunteer for it, but we do appreciate your cooperation and your participation in this activity. So just so that you guys know, I'm sure Dr. Crawford's already talked to you about this, but what we are doing today is this is professional development for our teachers. And what we're doing is we have a consultant that's coming in and he's practicing teaching strategy with you guys. And then after that is done, you guys will go to the middle part of the media center and wait, and we'll just have a debrief with our presenter and with our teachers afterwards. So you have a lot of teachers watching you today. To the best that you're able, just pretend that they're not here. Okay? Just kind of conduct this and act like you normally would in class. Okay?
No.
Maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit. And for our adults who are watching today, I want to introduce, this is Andrew Pinney. He is from Max Teaching, and we want to welcome him and thank him for coming. So, okay, I'll turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, class.
Good afternoon.
I'm excited to be here and teach this lesson. I do want to know before I start, how many of you plan on going to college someday or hope to? Most of you? Okay. The good news about that is it will be the best time of your life. You're going to have all kinds of freedom. You take classes that you want to take, that you're interested in, and it's going to prepare you to have a fulfilling job where you make a lot of money someday. So college is awesome. One possible downside to college, may or may not be, depending, is in college you're going to have a lot of classes where the teacher, professor, doesn't cover everything in class that they test you on. In fact, sometimes only about half of what they cover in class they test you on, but you have to learn all these other things that they don't cover. Where do you think that information comes from that you have to know that the teacher doesn't cover? Textbooks, exactly. So to be successful in college, you need to be able to read and acquire information from textbooks. Without the teacher saying, know this, you have to read and comprehend and decide what's important. And so one of the biggest predictors of college success is in fact, the ACT rep said this was the #1 predictor. It's the ability to make an inference. In other words, can you read something and it doesn't say it explicitly, and you can think about what it says and then infer that this is the argument that the author is making. Now, if you don't feel really comfortable with that right now, that's okay, you have time. But the strategy that I'm going to use today is one that's really going to help you in that ability to make inferences. So what you have in front of you is a 3-level guide. You will not need your devices today, so you can put those aside. It's a list of statements. You have level 1 statements and you have level 2 statements, and I'll talk about those in a second. But what I'd like you to do is just look at level 3. Your level 3 statements are these. These have to do with what you're going to read today, but you don't have to read to do level 3. Level 3 are your opinions. Okay? So, there's 2 statements here. Number 10 says forests should be preserved at all costs. In other words, we need to protect national forests and forest land no matter what. There's no excuse. We need to protect those. People shouldn't be on those lands, cutting down trees for lumber or coal. Those lands should be protected because we need forests. Now, you have 4 options. You can strongly agree with that statement. You would write an essay on the line. If you strongly agree that forests should be protected at all costs, you would write essay. That means strongly agree. If you think that they're, for the most part, yes, but I can see reasons why we would eventually need to not protect them, but for the most part, yes, I agree, maybe I could be convinced, you would put an A. If you disagree, and you think, I can think of a lot of reasons that would be more important than protecting a forest if we needed that land for something, to grow food perhaps, or whatever the case might be, or you can strongly disagree. So you have 4 options. Now, there is no right or wrong answer. whatever you put is right, because I'm asking your opinion. So even if you're the only one in the room that says disagree and everyone else says agree, it's okay, because it's your opinion. Do the same thing for 11. Plants need us as much as we need them. Okay? So just do these two questions, two statements. There are extras that people, they already have them out there. Perfect. Awesome, thank you. Okay, class. I want you to just look at number 11 and write a sentence at the bottom of the page in that blank spot dealing with just number 11. You would say, I agree, or I disagree, or I strongly agree because, and then tell me why in one sentence. So if you agree, you would agree. If you disagree, you would disagree. Because, and then tell me why. All right. Go ahead and share at your table. Everybody just share their sentence, and then I'm going to call on a few people to share out with the class. Everybody just share their sentence they wrote. and we have some agrees, and we have some disagrees. I want to hear from two people who strongly agreed with number 11. Nice and loud, please.
I said because plants give us oxygen, and then we breathe out carbon dioxide, and it just keeps repeating itself.
Okay, very good. Who would like to add to that? Strongly agree. I know a bunch of you did. Who else strongly agreed? Who's going to go? Yes, thank you. Anyone have something a little bit extra or a little bit different? Yes.
I said that I agree because plants need us not to damage them in any type of way. So like if we damage like certain areas of the planet that have like plants and stuff, then like the oxygen, like some people, like some animals or people here might have not have like they don't have enough oxygen for you to work with. And I said also for like some plants, like house plants, like gas plants, they grow in garden and stuff like that, they need proper care.
Okay, very good. So you're talking about when we deforest and plow under the rainforest, but also domestic plants in our house that need our help. So you see this relationship. Okay, very good. How about those of you who just agree? Not strong, but just an A. I need to hear from at least two. There's no right or wrong answer here. You just simply read your sentence. What's that? We're talking about 11. Just agree on 11. Nice and loud.
I said I agree because I believe that we need them as much as they need us.
And elaborate a little bit.
I do feel that I do feel that plants do need us, but like they don't have to have us.
That's why you didn't strongly agree.
Yeah,
They need us, but
yeah, they don't have to have us.
okay. Who else who just agreed wants to say one more from just agreed? You want to share? I need to hear one more. Do you need to circle back up your table and decide who's going to do this? You want to go? I don't mind the uncomfortable silence. I'm going to wait until somebody does this. So who's got an agree? Go ahead. Share with the class. Thank
I
you.
agree because plants need oxygen, and so do we. So I agree.
Okay. All right. So we have two disagrees in the room. And I need to hear from both of you. So tell us why you disagree with everybody else in the class that plants need us as much as we need them.
I said I disagree because all plants need to grow is the sun and water, and we need plants for other all types of uses, oxygen, food, and other things. And I said if there were no humans on Earth, plants would still grow, but if there were no plants, then animals would die.
So we need them more than they need us, is what you're saying. Okay, very good. So how would you like to add to that?
I said I disagree because plants don't really need us unless the plants are in an environment where they can get water and stuff.
Okay. All right, so we have some disagreements here. Maybe we can sort these out as we read the article we're about to read. And I haven't passed it out yet for a reason, because I just want you to look up here. So what you have, class, this is called a 3-level guide. Raise your hand if you've seen one of these before. Okay, so this will be your first time. That's okay. Now, level 1 says what the text says explicitly. Who can tell me what that means? Explicitly. Clearly what it's talking about. In other words, it's right there on the page. It may not be worded exactly the same, but there's no gray area. When you read those first 4 and you read the text, you will know if those are true or not based on what the text says. Okay, so let's read these. The length of night, leaf pigments, and weather all influence the changes in the colors of autumn leaves. In this text, it's going to tell you what influences the changes, and you'll see if it's those three. It'll say it right in there. If it's not those three, if it's a different three, you're going to put an X on the line and write the number of paragraph where you found that information. If that's true, you're going to put a check on the line. So if it's true, you're putting a check. If it's not true, you're putting an X, and then you're going to write the paragraph number where you found it. Okay? Either whether it's true or not, you still have evidence where you found it. Number 2 says chlorophyll. Chlorophyll production slows down in the fall. It's going to tell you if it stays the same, speeds up, or slows down. It'll be explicitly in the text, and you'll check it or X it and put the paragraph. Carotenoids, am I saying that right?
Sure.
Carotenoids? Carotenoids are not always present in leaves. It's going to explicitly tell you if it is or isn't. And evergreens are able to survive the harshest of winters. It will tell you if they can or cannot. Those first 4, I'll be honest with you, you could hunt and find those. You could read it here and just go looking for it until you find it. Raise your hand if you've ever done that in school. That's, of course, right? Okay, here's why I'm going to ask you not to do it, for 2 reasons. One is it's not real reading. It's not going to improve your ability to read. All of you want to go to college. Let's improve your ability to read by actually reading. The second reason is you cannot do 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 by hunting. You can't. You have to read it from start to finish to do those 5, so you might as well do them all together as you're reading, start to finish. They're worded differently. This is an inference. Level 2, inferences drawn from text. What does an inference mean? Who wants to try to share this? What's an inference? We're inferencing. It's a little bit more than a guess. It starts with a guess. Educated guess, is that what you said? Yeah, that's closer, right? So you're going to read what it says, and when you make an inference, you're taking what the author is saying and what you think the author's saying with your kind of beliefs, and you're making an inference. And so, let's look at number 5. The absence of sun greatly affects the colors of fall leaves. It's not going to say that exactly in there, but it will say things, and you'll say, okay, based on what it says, yes, I think that's the case. Or based on what it says, no, I don't think that's the case. Number 6, of the 3 types of pigments, one is more important for the plant than the others. I can promise you that it doesn't say in what you're about to read which one is most important. It tells you about each, and then you have to say, okay, based on what it says about these 3, this is what I think would be the most important. Taking what the author says, and you're adding your thoughts to it. 7, soil moisture attributes to the change in leaf colors more than changing temperatures do. Both of those attribute to, but it doesn't say which one does more. So you'll have to read it and say, okay, based on what it says, this would be more, or based on what it says, this would be more. Number 8, the production of sugars is the most important process in leaves changing of color. It doesn't tell you what the most important is. So if you went looking for that, you're not going to find it. But it tells you what sugars do, and then what some other things do, and then you again have to make this inference. And number 9, without falling leaves, nature would be out of balance. Those words aren't in there. Okay? But as you read this, you'll be able to say, would the author agree with this or not? Now, I've talked about this. Now we're going to read and find evidence for those first 9. But I'm going to read with you the first several paragraphs, and maybe we'll do 1, 2, and 1 in the level 2s together. Okay? So we need to pass out the reading. Sure. lucky, you live in one of those parts of the world where nature has one last fling before settling down into winter sleep. In those lucky places, as days shorten and temperatures become crisp, the quiet green palette of summer foliage is transformed into the vivid autumn palette of reds, oranges, golds, and browns before the leaves fall off the trees. On special years, the colors are truly breathtaking. Do we have any information yet for number 1 or 5? Because these are going to go in order in the levels, for the most part, in level 1 for sure. So we don't have any information yet, so let's keep reading in paragraph 2. How does autumn color happen? For years, scientists have worked to understand the changes that happen to trees and shrubs in the autumn. 3 factors influence autumn leaf color: leaf pigments, length of night, and weather, but not quite in the way we think. Okay, look at number 1. Length of night, leaf pigments, and weather all influence the changes in the colors of autumn leaves. And it says 3 factors influence the autumn leaf color. So is number 1 true? Yes, so let's put a check mark on number 1. What paragraph is this? 2. So you put a 2 underneath the statement. This, we're gathering evidence here. Okay. Now, let's keep reading where I left off. The timing of color change in leaf fall are primarily regulated by the calendar. That is, the increasing length of night. None of the other environmental influences, temperature, rainfall, food supply, etc., are as unvarying as the steadily increased length of the night during autumn. As days grow shorter and nights grow longer and cooler, biochemical processes in the leaf begin to paint the landscape with nature's autumn palette. Number 5, the absence of sun greatly affects the colors of fall leaves. It doesn't say that, does it? But does it say something that we could infer if that's true or not? Let's read it. Let's maybe read it again. Let's read that paragraph again. The timing of color change in leaf fall are primarily regulated by the calendar. That is, the increasing length of night. None of the other environmental influences, temperature, rainfall, food supply, etc., are as unvarying as the steady increasing length of the night during autumn. As days grow shorter and nights grow longer and cooler, biochemical processes in the leaf begin to paint the landscape with nature's autumn palette. Could we infer that when the days are shorter and the nights are longer, that this is affecting the fall of the leaves?
Yes.
Based on what it says here? Yeah, because it's saying that this is happening for sure. There's no variance. It's going to happen. And this is going to change. It says that last word there. The palette is going to change. The leaves are going to change. And so, for me, it seems like this would affect the colors of the leaves, the absence of sun. It doesn't say absence of sun, but a longer night. It doesn't say greatly affects, but I can see that that's what's going to happen. So I'm going to put a check here for number 5. What paragraph? 2. Also 2. Okay. So let's do one more paragraph together here. Where do autumn colors come from? A color palette needs pigments, and there are 3 types that are involved in autumn color. Chlorophyll gives leaves their basic green color. It is necessary for photosynthesis, a chemical reaction that enables plants to use sunlight to manufacture sugars for their food. Carotenoids, which produce yellow, orange, and brown colors in such things as corn, carrots, and daffodils, as well as rutabagas, buttercups, and bananas. And then we have anthracynus, which give color to such familiar things as cranberries, red apples, Concord grapes, blueberries, cherries, strawberries, and plums. They are water soluble and appear in the watery liquid of leaf cells. So, let's look at number 6. Of the 3 types of pigments, okay, we know what those are, right? One is more important for the plant than the others. Does it say which one's more important? Could we infer which one's more important? Reread them and tell me which one and why is the most important. table first, okay? Talk to your table, and I want each table to decide, using text evidence, making an inference, which one is more important, or are they one not more important than the others? Talk to your table. What do you guys think? Why do you say that? Which one do you guys think it is? Why do you say that? Which do you guys think? No? Which one do you think? Why do you think that? What do you guys think? All right, every table thinks the same thing. Could we make that inference then? Everybody agrees. So, should this be checked? Yes. What is it? Chlorophyll. Why do we infer that? What does the text say? Who wants to say?
Say the whole the study. It says.
Yeah.
It believes that receiving the color is necessary for photosynthesis, the chemical reaction that enables plants to use sunlight to manufacture sugars and
And why is that more important than the other two?
because it gives them food and sun. It gives them that makes them grow. That
Oh.
is the only thing that's good.
Awesome. Nice job. So we're going to say it's checked and number 3 underneath it. Okay? I think you're ready to do this now on your own. So we're going to take 12 to 13 or 14 minutes here of on your own silent reading. You know the statement, so pick up in paragraph 4. Now look up here real quick before you start. Read it from start to finish, and if you see anything, then go to your 3-level guide and do it. Then if you're finished all the way and you have gaps in your 3-level guide, then you can go back and look. But read it like a true reader. Read it from start to finish. Think about what you're reading. If you don't find evidence for all of these, that's okay. But try to find evidence for as much as you can, and then your group will help you work through it after that. So 12 minutes on your own. If you get stuck, there's a word you don't understand, or you're struggling in a paragraph, raise your hand. Okay, we have 2 teachers that can help and a room full of teachers that can help actually if we needed to. So go ahead and silently read and gather evidence for these first 9 statements. Okay, if I can have your attention. Everybody look up here for a second. Look up here real quick. What you're going to do now is at your table, you're going to compare your answers for 2 through 9. We already did 1, and you can skip 5 and 6. But here's what I want you to do. Don't just change your answer if it's 3 against 1. Do not change any of your answers until you are shown text evidence. Then, if they say, oh, here it is, then you can change. Especially in level 1, you should all agree on the answer, but don't just change. Make them show you the evidence. Okay? In level 2, 7, 8, and 9, compare your answers. You do not have to agree. Guys, stop. You do not have to agree, but you have to have text evidence. So tell the other people at your group, here's my evidence for number 7, what's yours? Make sure you get to hear each other out, because there's going to be a class discussion where I'll be calling on people, so make sure you know what you're going to say. If I say, did you check 7 or not, make sure you know what you're going to say. So compare your answers, start at 2, 3, and 4, then go to 7, 8, and 9. Don't just change an answer, make them show you the evidence. So go ahead, at your table. attention. Now, number 1, everybody checked. Number 2, check. Is there anyone not checking 2? Everybody's checking 2. Number 3, raise your hand if you checked 3. Raise your hand if you X'd 3. Everybody's Xing 3. Number 4, raise your hand if you're checking. Is there anybody Xing? Okay. There's usually no arguments here in level 1. If somebody maybe needed something, their group usually fixed it up. This group talked a little bit about 4, but they got it fixed. So let's do number 7. Raise your hand if you checked 7. We have 1 checking 7. Raise your hand if you X'd 7. The rest of you are Xing. So let's talk about this. Using evidence from the text, tell me why you checked or why you X'd. Tell us what the paragraph is and what your thinking is. Nice and loud.
Alright, so in paragraph 7, right?
Are you arguing for checking or Xing?
Exit.
Xing. So the statement is soil moisture contributes to the changes in leaf colors more than the changing temperatures do.
Yeah, paragraph 7, it says that temperatures and moisture are the main influence from the brilliance of colors developing any particular autumn season. We talk about colors in autumn.
Uh-huh.
And temperature and moisture are the main influence. And in paragraph 9,
In paragraph 9, go ahead.
it says a warm, wet spring, favorable summer weather, and warm, sunny fall days with cool nights should produce the most radiant autumn colors. So you're saying temperature and moisture are both equally part of making the colors.
Okay, so tell the class why maybe you are checking that.
Moisture and the temperature both are extremely during during the times of day. So that it matters. Yes. So
That's why I check.
So you're saying moisture more than temperature.
yeah,
And say it again, why?
like
I think you were looking at the end of paragraph 9, maybe, when I was over there. Was there anyone else that really could have maybe gone either way on this? What would your argument be if it was if you could say if it was moisture was more important? What would your argument be? Because the rain. Which one has more of a variable and which one has less of a variable?
I think they're equal because they're both mentioning moisture and temperature. It's not saying one needs more than the other.
Okay, good. What was the conversation this table had? You guys you were talking an interesting thing about what you felt about house plants, and you talked about that. Can you tell the class? Yeah.
I feel that both processes are equally important. Like I feel like if you had a house plant that didn't get any sun at all, but you watered it regularly, it would still end up dying, not having very many colors. But at the same time, if you had an outside plant, but you never watered it or it never rained, but it got plenty of sun, it still wouldn't have that many colors because it's not getting both, moisture and temperature.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to add for number 7 of why you were Xing it? Same reasons that we've heard? Okay. Number 8. Raise your hand if you checked 8. The production of sugars is the most important process in the leaves. Raise your hand if you X'd 8. Nice. Put it up. There's a couple. Go ahead. Who else? Who else X'd 8? I thought there was somebody else. Okay. Those of you who checked it, let's tell me why. We'll hear from the checkers first and then the X. Let's hear from somebody new. Why did we check number 8? What is your text evidence and why don't you go ahead? You had some good thoughts on this one. explain the thinking that you were telling me.
Um,
Anyone else want to talk about 8? Who else? Thank you. All right, so let's hear from the person who's Xing 8 and tell us why.
I disagree because it says the production of sugar is the most important process in the leaf, when it actually says in paragraph 8, the conditions are lots of sugar and lots of lights for the production of brilliant pigments and such. And it even shows also in paragraph 8 that during the day lots of sugar is produced, but during the night the veins in the leaves actually close, stopping the production of sugar. So they need both of them to work correctly.
Okay, so one isn't more important. They're both
They're both important to help each other out.
Anyone convinced to change based on what he just said? So tell me why you're sticking with it then. Yes.
because the plant needs sugar, and sugar is energy, and without energy, the plant is dead.
Yeah, and what do you say to that?
I mean, yeah, it does need the sugar, but it also needs the light because during the day the production of sugar is continuing, but at night, which shows right there it needs the light, the production of sugar stops because the veins in the leaves are closing.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, well, I like that he has text evidence on his side, so I'm as long as you have text evidence to support your thinking, you have something else to add?
But what does the light, if you don't got, if the light makes the sugar, if the light, what's the point of having light if the light's supposed to make the sugar? But the light's kind of just like,
It's not making the sugar, it's helping the process.
no, like, what is the sugar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Saying they're both equally important. You can't just have sugar and it works fine, like you never put it in sunlight, but you also definitely need sugar for, photosynthesis and making its own food and such. It's a combination, just like number 7, it's a combination of like both equally important, it's like a machine. If like you have one gear missing in the machine, the whole thing won't work.
What were you thinking? What were you saying?
Well, it says,
What paragraph are we looking at?
And paragraph 3, where it says it's necessary for photosynthesis also, and to make photosynthesis, our photosynthesis enables the plant to use sunlight to manufacture sugar for the food, which therefore means sunlight would produce the sugar, so that means sunlight won't come out sugar.
Wow, he went back to paragraph 3 for this one. Nice work. Okay. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to write about this one. So take your 3-level guide and turn it to the back. Okay. You are going to write. You're going to make a claim. I don't want you to say I think or I feel. I want you to make a claim. Say the production of sugar is the most important part of the process, or it is not the most important part of the process, and then tell me why, and then use evidence from the text. So turn the paper over and make your claim. Take one side of number 8. Don't say I think or I feel. Say it. Argue it. It's an opinion if you say I feel. Let's argue it. This is what I believe. But say it. Claim. Claim and support it with reasons and evidence. You must use text evidence to answer this, to support your argument. We're done at 5. Gotta use evidence from the text. state your claim and have reasons and evidence from the text. Okay, trying to finish up here in the next minute. I will be collecting these on your way out. We're almost done with the class. Okay, if I can have your attention there, you can finish up after, but I just want to, you're going to be free to go now and hand me these on your way out. I just want to say that I was impressed. You did a very good job. Those of you who were able and felt good about making these inferences, that's again, a predictor of college success, so you should feel good about that. If you struggled in level 2, that's okay too. You have a couple years to work on this, but you really do need to read things from start to finish and not hunt and find answers. It really keeps you from improving your reading. So every opportunity you have to read something, you need to read and think, because that's what real reading is. But you did a great job, and I look forward to reading what you wrote. So thank you very much. You're good.
Thank you.
So what you saw there is a 3-level guide. It's in the Max Teaching book. I did one earlier today with this one in social studies. They were reading about when I have kids doing level 3 first. It's for a pre-reading strategy to build interest and background knowledge in the topic. And if you have kids, some kids put disagree and some agree and strongly agree, and they go back and forth a little bit. The goal is to build some spark interest in the topic, get a little maybe debate going. Earlier today they did number 10, and we had a much bigger division. So if I could, anytime I reflect on a lesson, there's usually some things I would change. Obviously, I'd fix the typo, but one thing I might do as well is try to word those level 3 statements a little different to get more kids on both sides. Because we only had 2 disagreeers, and the goal really is to have more back and forth there, which is why I didn't have them get up into 4 corners like I did earlier today. We got up into strongly agree, agree, disagree. I just did it from their seats here because it was going to be quicker. There wasn't going to be as much back and forth. Anytime I do a 3-level guide for the first time as well with the reading, that's the first time I've done this with kids, this particular 3-level guide. And so there's usually a level 2 statement that I'm going to tweak for next time that I might make a little bit different. And this is no different here. I probably would change number 7 a little bit to get more kids on both sides. So I would word it stronger one way or the other. Because really, when you do a 3-level guide with kids, you want them to like doing it. And if there's nothing to argue, if there's always a right answer in level 2, then it's more like a worksheet. But if there's something in level 2 that you can have kids arguing on both sides, then they'll like this activity. And out of everything in the Max teaching book and everything else I've picked up, I don't know of a better strategy to do with kids than this one. To have kids arguing with text evidence, making inferences, really is a college and career. Your number 1 reading standard is for kids to understand what the text says explicitly as well as draw inferences from text. Your number 1 writing standard is argument writing using text evidence. This is a really good strategy to get those 2 things happening. Our reluctant writers, in my experience with this activity, will write because they just had this argument. And they have some autonomy. They can take either side. In the one we did earlier today in history class, they argued 7 and 9 with kids on both sides of the room using text evidence. So I gave them a choice. They could write about either of those. Because the one we're writing about is one that you could be on either side of. So I'll be interested to look. I will say this reading is pretty high lexile.
That's what I was just going to ask. What is can I ask the lexile?
It was Megan's P.
It's not. I actually gave him one that was a lot easier.
Oh.
And then he came back and said, you want to try this? I'm like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
This is tough.
Yeah, this is, what DOK level is this in terms of making inferences about a piece of writing? What level?
When you get to the level 3 kinds of conversations, you're starting to get into DOK 4.
Yeah, at least,
They're starting to make other
Yeah.
connections.
This
I
is
don't know what the lexile is.
This is one of the reasons another reason to really like this activity. It's rigorous. I mean, there's a lot of thinking to do this. And so so one of the disadvantages I'm at when I come in just for a day is knowing the reading level of the kids that are going to be in front of me. But I started thinking earlier today, maybe this would be too high, because what some teachers were saying after we debriefed with the AP class about some of the struggles that some of the kids have with reading. So based on that, I was pleased with how the kids did. We saw one student who was opting out, kind of, but I didn't know if there was a learning issue or not. Yeah. So again, I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage. But here's what happens. If here's a student who I see opting out, and the avoidance behaviors, whatever they might be, my first thing is they're looking at this reading and looking at this 3-level guide and saying to themselves, I'm not going to be successful for the next 10 or 12 minutes, and then I'm going to go to a group and I'm not going to have any evidence. So of course I would rather sharpen my pencil or go to the clinic or act like I don't care or whatever. So when I see that happening, I want to chunk it because they're overwhelmed looking at these 2 pieces of paper. So I would just go, hey, just read number 2, just read the second paragraph. I'll be right back to see how you did. And then come back and see how they did and say, okay, you got number 2, nice job. Now just read number 6 and just read these 2 paragraphs and I'll be right back. And so for that 10 to 12 minutes or however long we're taking to read, I know they're not going to do all 9, but that's okay. If they feel good about 3 of them when they go to their group, they're gonna go with the group and say, hey, here's what I got for 2, and it was this paragraph, and be more likely to hear the ones they didn't get to. So that's what you need to do when you see kids who this is they've perceived it above their level, whether it is or not. Their brain immediately says, do I want to do this or do I not want to do this? So any thoughts, questions, observations, concerns?
The girl that didn't want to read her statement, she just was not gonna do it.
At the beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had
So-
she done it on the paper?
Huh?
Had she done it on the
Where was that, right up in the
The
front?
green coat, zipped up, she had an early dismissal.
She's pretty quiet in general, so I think that was my guess if she was intimidated.
And that, one of the reasons I have kids write down the sentence at the bottom is so I can you can just read what you wrote. It's kind of a safety kind of issue, but having teachers in the back and, there's a whole different, it's a whole different dynamic of putting yourself out there. But I would have to say that the amount of kids who were taking a difficult piece of text and giving it a go, whether they had the success or not, just giving it a go, is a testament to the kids, but also the culture of your classroom. Because not every class I go into, some kids there'd be more kids doing the avoidance behaviors. And so I think that's
A good portion of these students, I would say, are definitely well below 50th percentile in their maps reading. So this was a very challenging piece for them, and they stuck with it.
They did stick with it.
I expect, over here I expected that he would spend the entire day to do it, and that's just the way he approaches everything. So that didn't bother me, but the rest of them were really on focus, and that's a
I think it's a mistake. I think it's a mistake to assume that because students have low map scores, that they can't handle complex material. They may not be able to handle complex reading, but that doesn't mean they can't handle complex ideas and thinking. And what this strategy does is provide the engagement at the front end of it. So now it really worked well in social studies because if you can look at level 3 on there real quick, what he had on the social studies was about child labor in making shoes or iPhones. Okay, they all have shoes and iPhones that may have been made in other countries by labor that they don't know if it's prison labor or what kind of labor it was. They got really interested in that topic right away. That gave them a connection to the reading. And so I guess my point is if you can get that, if you can sell the lesson through that sort of a strategy, you can get kids engaged in reading that might be over their heads because they're interested in the topic now.
Yeah, and I would admit that all the 4 lessons I did in planning them, I probably spent the most time trying to come up with level 3 statements for this reading about leaves. I knew this was going to work.
Yeah.
Like I knew kids, this was relevant. And the other 2 we could have argued as well, but we only argued 1. The leaves was harder, so I actually texted like 3 other Max teachers that I know, here's what the article's about, can you help me with any level 3 statements to get kids? And it just didn't lend itself, but maybe you have ideas, as well as this one did. But I did want to do a 3-level guide with this reading to show.
I remember the first time I heard Mark present, he did a question about a biology lesson where something about earthworms and reproduction, and he wrote as his statement, earthworms reproduce by having sex with themselves. And he talked about how that engaged the students, and they were all like, I gotta find out if that's true.
Exactly.
So the whole idea with these anticipation guides and level 3 guides is to generate statements that are going to get the kids, like you said earlier, get them arguing with each other. because they like to debate, they like to argue.
And you could see these kids when this young man was saying, well, here's what it says here, and this one was saying here. The other kids, there was a couple not so much, but the other kids were referring to the text. They wanted to see how this thing was going to hash out. You have a thought or a question? Or?
Yeah, just to add what Mr. Riddle said about the kids relating to this. So many of our kids work too, and when they hear what the wages are, the kids work for in other countries, and they complain about their wages, but when they hear something like that, it's going to engage them even more, and they would have a really deeper feeling about it as well.
Well, these kids got up in Four Corners, and they said some of the really insightful stuff that also doesn't only build interest, but it builds background knowledge for other kids before they go in. So, you know, in the science, some sciences, it lends itself. This was a tougher read to, but maybe we would, that's something I would even.
But that's also okay, sometimes things to be tougher, because they need that challenge, and everything that they read is not going to always
not going to
be relevant, relate to.
Exactly. This is an example of a piece of difficult text that they might have to, you know, deal with on
I think
some assessment.
this test caused them to have to pull a lot of their prior knowledge from what they've learned in class. They had to think about some of the notes that they've taken.
Oh, yeah,
I heard from the
photosynthesis,
language
yeah.
that they were using.
Yeah.
They knew what they were talking about.
Which again is a testament to the class. These kids, especially at the beginning, when we had these two kids disagreeing on one of the level 3 statements, that they were using domain-specific vocabulary, and I mean they were really saying some stuff. So,
Well, you know, while the kids were working, Peter and Andrea and I had a really rich discussion here about just vocabulary in your classes, how you have to model vocabulary, how you have to constantly think about, even with your advanced students, do they know the vocabulary that I'm using? Do I need to remind them what this word means? And it's another example of why word walls are so important. The critical vocabulary in your content areas needs to be up so that you can refer to it constantly, so that there's a lot of repetition around it, and they really internalize that vocabulary so that when they encounter it in a text, it's easier for them to grasp the text.
so let me borrow this for a second. The research says that if you know 90% of the words in a passage, you will comprehend it. If you only know 80, you will not.
Right.
So one thing you could do, which I didn't, but you could give them this ahead of time before I even introduce the 3-level guide and say, circle or highlight, underline, don't read it, just go through it and underline or circle the words so that you don't know what they are, what they mean, and then go around and get a quick formative assessment, make a list on the board, and have a little discussion and fill in some of that, so then when they read it, they'll get to that 90.
Well, these guys got to go. So thank you very much.
Thank
Enjoyed
you.
it a lot.
Thank you.